The Graphic Histories Podcast.
I got bit by a radioactive bug. I tried an experimental drug. Went up for a stroll on a gamma testing range. I found an enchanted hurricane. I made a serum that made me small. I modified the serum so it would make me tall. Radioactive isotope in my eyes. Dying alien helped me accessorize. I gained the proportion and strength of a spider. Now I'm invincible and I can fly. I lost my sight, my other senses were heightened. I'm gonna put on my pajamas and go fight crime.
Hello and welcome to the Graphic Histories Podcast. My name is Andre Mayette and I will be your host. Big thanks to Uka the Mock for our theme song, Superpowers. And big thanks to you, gentle listener, for tuning in once again to another episode. This week's guest is Hugh Rookwood, who I should have asked when I spoke with him how to properly pronounce his last name. I thought it was Rockwood for a very long time until a year or two ago when I actually looked at it and I was like, oh right, I've been pronouncing this wrong forever. But I did get a chance to sit down with Hugh, who I've known through comic conventions. We have a lot of mutual friends, a guy who's deeply involved in the art community, and I do mention in the podcast a guy who has the most hustle of anyone I've ever seen on the con circuit. He hits every con he can. He's got amazing displays, beautiful art, all these different versions, huge framed ones and little ones here, like prints, and just an amazing setup, and a guy that really knows how to market himself and his art. And we have a deep conversation about creativity, about knowing the fundamentals, and he frames some things in a way I never thought about when it comes to, you know, alternative art, or at least art that tries to break or bend to the rules, in quotations, and approaching it in a way that I don't want to ruin it. You listen to the episode, you'll hear it, you'll enjoy it. It's a great talk. Anyway, as far as what's going on with me, not a whole lot. I know I talked before about my cat that was ill, Presley, the one that had passed away in November. It looks as though one of her other cats, Klaatu, who's about 15 years old now, is also looking like his time may be drawing near. We took him in because he seemed to have problems swallowing, and they did some x-rays, and it appears as though he may have some tumors in his lungs and something in his throat, but they say he doesn't seem to be in pain. He just seems to be running its course. So, you know, as long as he's eating and he seems happy, to let him go, and that's what we've been doing, and he seems fine. So, you know, I'm worried that it could be, I've heard people tell stories where it's been years after they got diagnoses like this before their cat passed away, so I'm hoping that may be the case, but it just sucks being in this situation less than, you know, a few months from the previous one. But, you know, we're getting through it. I just try to remind myself, you know, these creatures, if they lived in the street, would have had pretty short lives, and because of the lives we've given them, they've been deeply extended, and you know, the best possible scenario is that that you have to have them put down because they're ill. I mean, short of them just falling asleep and passing away, but that is incredibly rare. So, you know, I'm just trying to keep it framed in a good way and not get too down about it, because it can be pretty down-getting. The Oscar season is upon us, and previous indications of shows I've done, we've kind of done an Oscar run-through. I'm a massive fan of the film Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I kind of hope it sweeps. I doubt it will, but I would very much like to see it get Best Picture. I don't know if it will. I mean, I think Michelle Yeoh should get Best Actress. I don't know if she will, but I would love to see it just sweep the Oscars, because the Daniels, the directors, have a very unique and interesting voice and are very fun, creative guys. And their movies, I mean, they've only done 2 feature-lengths, this one and Swiss Army Man, which I also loved. But those films are have something to say, like really something to say, and they candy coat it in the first one with a bunch of fart jokes, and the second one with you know, a bunch of multiversal travel stuff. But at the heart of these things is really touching messages about, you know, the first one about Shane, the second one about family, and yeah, just great stuff. And I really hope that movie does well. I mean, it's already doing really well, and I'm sure the creators couldn't ask for a better outcome. But I would like to see it grab that golden trophy, because it might be my new favorite movie. Like, I've just watched it again recently with my wife, and she loved it, and I loved it even more watching it a second time. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But a lot of the Oscar movies this year are big contenders. I watched Tar, which I loved. I watched Triangle of Sadness, which I loved. I've watched a lot of the movies. I haven't seen The Fablesmans and a couple others yet, but a lot of the big Oscar contenders I got to check out and I really enjoyed. So if you're a movie person, definitely go get into that, check it out. And if you're not, well, watch more movies and then go check this stuff out. But anyway, it's enough about me and what's going on in my little corner of the world. How about we get to my conversation with Hugh Rookwood? Hugh is a very interesting guy. We get in-depth conversations about, his art, about how he got to where he is, and also about, his take on art and the hustle that comes with being an artist. And super talented guy. I highly suggest you look up his stuff, especially the book we talk about, the children's book he won an award for. Check that one out as well. It's beautiful. And super talented guy and a great conversation. And one of the most positive people I've probably ever met in the art world. And I know positivity in art is, it depends on the type of artist, I suppose. But Hugh really, really brings it. And he's magnanimous. He makes me excited about art and makes me want to look at life in a more a lighter way and in such a beauty as the way he perceives it. So, really touching guy. So, anyway, check out my conversation with Hugh Rookwood.
Mic check.
Hey, I can hear you.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
Good stuff. Good stuff. How you doing?
I'm well, and yourself?
All right. Not too shabby.
Oh, how are things?
Well, things are good. Things are good.
Yeah.
It's a little cold up here right now, but
I heard that. What are you guys looking at temperature-wise?
oh, you know what? It's only minus like 18 or minus 13, but it feels like it's minus 30. It's just a nasty wind chill, man.
Yeah, it's funny because
Cutting through.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, no, Nova Scotia here. We always like that's probably the highest we've had this winter is like minus 14, 15, 18 somewhere around there.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm actually surprised, actually.
Yeah, people think that we get it way colder out here, but I think it's because we're on the water. Like Alberta gets it way worse.
Yeah, we get it. Well, Winnipeg gets it the worst out of everybody. Winnipeg is just like, oh my God, it's nasty.
You have to want to be a skier to live in Winnipeg. That's the
Most definitely.
That's the only saving grace. Yeah, it's been a while. I think last time I saw you would have been at the NerdCon in PEI.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's the first. Was that your first one back from COVID, or are you doing a few here and there?
No. Actually, I just did Vancouver 2 weeks ago. Is that 2 weeks? Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks now. Vancouver, Toronto next week, or is the week after? No, next week. Yeah, next weekend. Yeah, not this weekend coming up, the weekend after. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
And I'll be doing Toronto and then some other ones around the place. You know what I'm saying? Calgary, I believe Saskatoon, doing maybe Montreal and a few,
That's
and then I definitely got to get back out there to Halifax and all of that too.
For sure. Have you ever done the East Coast Comic Expo, the one in Moncton?
No, I haven't.
Oh, really?
I want to do that one. I haven't yet, but I want to.
I believe applications are just came out for that one. So,
Okay. I should apply for that one. I'm trying to get myself all reset up again.
Yeah. Well, you know Nick, don't you? Nick Bradshaw.
Yeah, Nick Bradshaw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we're not personal, but I do know him. Yeah. He's always been a cool guy to me. He's really, really nice fellow.
Oh, he's one of the best that I've ever met doing these sort of things. So
yeah, he's just a cool dude, man.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd be happy to have you out, or the crew will. I don't know how involved he is with the planning, but I just know he's sort of the face of it a little bit. So it'd be awesome to have you out here. I mean, I'm Nova Scotia, but I do plan on doing the East Coast Comic Expo this year. They still had my table reserved from before COVID. Like I booked it for 2020, and then they kept putting it back, and this is the first year, and they're like, I just messaged them. I was like, am I still, because I just told them to keep my money until it's back, and they're like, yeah, we still got you. I'm like, great, cool. So made it nice and easy, nice and simple.
Hello.
Yep.
What happened?
Did I lose you? I still hear
you. Can you see me though?
I can. Yeah.
How come I can't see you? What just happened?
Oh no, I didn't turn off.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
That was weird.
The great signal out there in Alberta.
The computer just went burp. So I went, what just happened? But I didn't see the screen just disappeared all of a sudden.
Right on. So where were you born? Where'd you grow up at?
Well, I'm a Toronto kid. Canadian, first generation Canadian. My parents are from Jamaica.
Mm.
And I was born in Toronto, Toronto General, and grew up in Scarborough.
Oh, getting the
That's my
full
stomping-
Canadian experience.
Yeah, that's was my stomping grounds. Scarborough kid, Malvern. That's where I grew up. Yeah, and lived there most of my life. Went to Sheridan in Oakville, did animation there. And I was living in Oakville for a little while, Mississauga, that area for a while.
So was comics always the end game? Like when you were a kid, were you always interested in comic books?
Yeah, it really was. Like I did animation and stuff like that, but a lot of me learning animation was really about knowing and understanding how it works, so that one day when I'm creating my own stuff, you know what I'm saying, I can
it's a good plan
if I wanted to.
It's a long game.
Where a lot of, I was going to school with a lot of guys and they were like, oh, I gotta get into Disney, I gotta get into thing, I gotta get into that, but that really wasn't me. Like my whole thing was, and what I loved about it, it did build up the skills greatly. Like, the animation built up the skills really good.
Well, I would imagine animation would give you all of the ground, like the ground stuff, like you probably take the art classes, the anatomy and all that sort of stuff going into that. So you probably get the standard art, experience as well as all this additional stuff. Because it would have been, was it traditional animation? Like, or did you do all the different
2D, traditional 2D animation?
Wow, that's cool.
So, the paper flipping and the 500 drawings for like 30 seconds of animation.
It's funny that you mentioned all your the people you were going to school with, they were all like, gunning for Disney, because that seems to be like, whenever anybody, when I was a kid, it's the same thing. Like everybody like, you should work for Disney someday. And it's like, that seems to be the only career anybody can think of. If you're good at drawing, it'll make you money. Like, that's it. They're just like, you got to go to Disney. Like, there's nothing else out there that'll pay you that well. You got to go to Disney. And I don't even think Disney animators are paid that well. Like, probably not.
Actually, I don't think they're even the highest paid in the industry. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think a lot of it is the sort of fact that you got that Disney stamp on the things that you do. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's like a lot of top tier guys there that, is, beasts, a lot of beasts who work at Disney. Trust me, like guys just amazing with the, you know what I'm saying? With what they do. But, Disney is such a big super corp. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
But there's still like, if you ever got a chance, like if I got a chance to say, hey, come train here for a minute, come take a year and train here for a minute, I would do it. Like, know what I'm saying? Like,
you'd be crazy not to, 100%.
Yeah, there's just so much you can learn. And you know what I'm saying? So much talent, so much unbelievable talent there. So it's just, it's just one of those things. But I always wanted to comics was just my thing. I just loved the medium.
Do you remember what the first ones you got into were when you were younger?
Well, for me, it was like, you start with the Spider-Mans and you know what I'm saying, the Fantastic Four, Avengers. My main characters were Spider-Man, Thor, Hulk, and Doctor Strange. Those were my four top.
Those are four great choices.
Hard into. Like I really like those characters a lot. And and then, getting into the Iron Mans and the stuff like that. But, I just like the way Marvel was set up and the way they did things, you know what I'm saying? It's like, and I liked how things connected. Like you could read a Daredevil book and something happened in the Spider-Man issue, such and such, and it'd say it too. Remember when they met in issue number, that one, and then next thing you know, you're collecting that, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I really
Marvel's always really
loved about it,
Yeah, Marvel's always really good at that, especially if you're kind of a continuity nerd. Like I'm not so much like as I used to be, since you realize as the years pile on that it's kind of folly to try to stick with all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, but DC seem to reinvent themselves every so many years, and if you try to explain to somebody like, what Superman is now, it's like, well, he's from another universe, but
there was one in this universe, but he died, and that one's in his place now. But then he's a son, and now the son is Superman, but he was young, but then they aged him up. Like it's like, if you say Spider-Man, it's like it's pretty much the same. He's kind of a schluppy guy who trying to do well, but always falls on his ass, and like it just sort of. He was rich for a while, now he's not. Then he was a teacher for a while, now he's not. Like it's easier to explain all that for a continuity hound than it is to be like.
I don't even try.
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
It's like there was 9 crises, and at one point Batman was over here. Now he's over here. He's got a kid now, but that's not the other Batman from. Yeah, it gets to be a bit much.
Yeah, it gets a little too. It's just a little too much.
Yeah.
Just for me, I mean, for all these young kids coming up, I mean, that's their thing, and they can get that, but. For me with comics, like you said, like I'm a continuity buff, and certain things really bother me when I read a book one way, and then you have the character doing one thing, and then the next book I read and he's doing something completely, you know what I'm saying? And you're like, but why is he having problems doing this when he just did this in the last issue?
It's rare I find people that are the same way. Most people just kind of got rid of it, and I'm just sort of like, but he he's in this comic. Spider-Man says he doesn't like baseball. And 3 comics ago, it shows him going to baseball games with Uncle Ben when he was a kid and having a good time. Like that doesn't make any sense. I want my no prize.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. I don't know. It's a little much now. So I'm old enough now where it's just like, what, just work on. But I've never really been like, I always loved reading the mainstream stuff. The Marvels, and I grew up on that, so don't get it twisted. But I read a lot of manga when I was younger too, and Chinese comics that like Tony Wong and all
that's
that.
interesting. I can see it. I was looking at a lot of your work leading up to this, and I can see the anime influences in some of your stuff, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, especially when it comes to movement, that stuff really inspired me to really push movement and perspective and dynamic anatomy and stuff like that. It really, because they would just the way everything's jumping at everything, everything looks, and it's just amazing. And that pull in the eye, the way they just really can pull you into the plane, and it was just like that was something I really wanted to be able to do with my work, and so I have a lot of, but I just what I'm saying? I mean, but I like classic artists too, Salvador Dali. What I'm saying? He did a lot of that kind of those elements in his paintings, in his work. You can see a lot of that twisted reality and that push-pull of stuff. And that was the stuff too that really got me looking at work and saying, well, you can just kind of, really stretch things, and you know what I'm saying? But
that's cool.
But it still comes from a place of understanding how it's supposed to be done properly. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
yeah. I try to tell the youngsters when I'm saying it's like, oh, yeah, you want to do this, but you still have to understand how to do it properly so you know what to twist. You know what to exaggerate, because it still has to be in proportion to the rest of the imagery and how you pull, right? And that, and you just start to develop an eye after a while when you do it enough. But it's when you start out, it's like it's tough, right? But
that's super interesting. I never thought of it that way, but it's true. I mean, if you want to, it's like if you want to do a parody of something or you want to do a different version of something, you need to know that thing inside out in order to deconstruct it and then do it in a different way. Exactly. That's a very interesting way. I've never heard it approached that way, and I've also never.
And that's the thing that with comic books, and I guess with animation, why I took animation, and I was happy when I took animation too. It's because we're trying to reproduce life in animation. We're trying to reproduce emotions. We're trying to reproduce walking. We're trying to reproduce driving. We're trying to reproduce flying. Everything is a reproduction of real things. Even if so everything that you're working, fantastical still comes from a real base, and then it's just modified to become fantastical, right? But you still have those forces and things that you understand from a real setting, right?
Well, you can't have surrealism without realism, right?
Exactly. You gotta know you gotta understand what you're distorting, what I'm saying, and putting, and giving meaning to, so I mean,
So how deep was that something you discovered in animation, or were you like paying attention to like surrealist painters and stuff when you were younger?
yeah, like I mean, like I said, like Salvador Dali, like was probably my main dude. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? When it came to like when I'm looking at like that real surreal classical, like, you know what I'm saying? But like, but but when you're looking at like guys like, Leonardo and Michelangelo and stuff like that, right? And just like those early stages of really understanding perspective and dynamic anatomy, the twisting, and like you can see the layers upon layers upon layers in a pose. Like you really see the ripple from the skin molding over the muscle, molding over the bone, over like you just see everything very,
Yeah.
very finite and beautiful. And you go, wow, these guys were doing this stuff like way back. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
masters at it,
It's not like you had the internet for reference or anything. You literally
Yeah,
had to
they
get it
just
from
like,
reality or
and
cadavers or something,
yeah,
like
they said a lot of the technical skills people do today. Like, you know what I'm saying? Those are still a lot of the stuff people reference when it goes to, okay, well, if I want to be this realistic, life drawer and stuff like that, you're pulling from a lot of the old school,
mm.
you know what I'm saying, and looking at that work, you know what I'm saying? But
Well, people forget often that, like pop art can be dismissed a lot because comics
mhm,
fall into that realm a lot, where it's just like,
mhm.
well, it's disposable, it's quick because you flip through a comic, but the amount of work and painstaking, attention to detail that goes into that stuff,
Yeah.
it's insane, and people often miss that. And the influences from like classic anatomy, classic painters, the bombasticness of some of the action from like your manga influences, like
Yeah.
it's all in there, and like people dismiss that sometimes when they're flipping through the story. And I you'd be remiss to do so, because most comics are, if you really deconstruct them and look at them from where they came from, like from those original artists, it's gorgeous stuff.
Oh
Gorgeous.
yeah, it's beautiful. Like
Mm.
even as you go up and you look at like Norman Rockwell and you
Mm.
look at his, and when my life drawing teacher used to tell us, and we would be sitting and he'd be talking, he's like, yo, you have only one moment, one shot to catch to tell the story,
Mm.
you know? So then your understanding of composition and the forces and where your S and C curves and where you're moving the eye and stuff, that all becomes placement.
Mm.
All of those things, are starting to come into play, right? Because you only have one moment. Like a lot of people, there's a lot of guys that they just draw. Well, I'm gonna just draw Thor, and they just draw Thor, but it's like, well, why did you draw Thor that way? Why is he holding the hammer like this and not like why he's not like, you know what I'm saying? And everything is telling a story. Every little twist, turn in the body, you drop the shoulder like this, the shoulders up, like it's telling two different things. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? A closed fist this way from a closed fist that way is just two different things, right?
Mm.
So you just start to understand, and that's what I like when I did animation. Is just when you're trying to capture emotion, you got to really start to understand human bodies and psyches and emotions. It just gets deeper,
Mm.
and just start to really look at things a little bit deeper. You start to look at things deeper, and I really like that about things. And that's how, I said, yeah, that's now I hope to apply that to my drawing and stuff like
That's
that.
awesome. How did the parents feel about you going into animation?
You know, at first they were just happy that I was ready to do something, because I won't even lie to you. I took like when I came from school, like nobody in the days when we were doing this stuff, like you tell them what's animation, what's that? Like these weren't careers. Comic books, what's that?
Yeah,
These weren't
yeah,
careers. That was
yeah,
just like front line. Woohoo! Comic book. Like you're a comic book. That was, people like, oh, you're comic book artists. That's foolishness. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Like
yeah.
you see a lot of people coming out of the woodwork and oh yeah, I like Spider-Man. And I'm like, yeah, I remember you. You were one of those ones who used to like, you know what I'm saying? Piss on the
Yeah.
ass. Where
Oh yeah, yeah. It's funny. I wonder if that's
yeah.
changed now that like Marvel is such big business. Like I wonder
Yeah.
if parents are actually like, oh yeah, no, totally. Go draw comics. Go make some new creator that's going to
Well,
make a
that's
movie
it.
and make you millions.
Well, the thing is, right? All of these things like comics, video games, movies, they're all this now, right?
Hmm.
It's cross pollinate, right?
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
they they all affect each other. Like, I've gotten the chance to do comics, but really I wouldn't call myself, I've had a career in comic books. Like I've had this long-standing career in comic books. No, I've touched comic books. I've done this, done that, done this. But my whole thing for me is I've been an illustrator. I've been an illustrator. And so I had to be versatile. I had to be able to do a lot of different things. And I got to touch a lot of different things, doing storyboards, children's books, all sorts of stuff. So, that for me has been really cool too, because it's just like I never kind of stuck to one thing or one style or one look or one, I get to flip modes. Like I like to flip modes. I like to, work with somebody and they say, okay, come up with this kind of style. I'm kind of looking kind of like this, that. Okay, let me try to come up with a look. Like that's what pushes me. You know what I'm saying? It pushes the mind. Like I don't try to do a style and then it has to try to fit everything, because I don't think that works. And then as a independent freelance illustrator, I could never sustain.
No,
work. Guys are coming. Could you do something like this? No, I only do this style. Like,
you
can't say that.
Did you do this kid's book? No, I only draw these horror pictures.
Yeah,
that's all I do.
Know what I'm saying? No, I only draw symbiotes. Like,
can there be a symbiote in the kid's book?
Yeah, you can't do that, right? Yeah. So animation was really good in that way for me, because when you're working animation, like you're working on a production, it's this style, then you're working on another production, it's this style, and you had to be able to flip styles, right? But again, for me, animation was just something for me to learn to draw better and just get things. But the end game has always been for me to just eventually come out with my own thing and put it out there. I was never really trying to chase down the big companies that much. I really wasn't. I was always, man, I just want to produce something and put out there. You know what I'm saying? So,
something unique to you.
Yeah, I love the independent scene.
Well, it seems to be like it's such a big thing now, more so than it ever used to be. Especially when you look at right now, I'm watching The Umbrella Academy on Netflix. I watched the first 2 seasons. I'm finally getting to the third one now, and you look at what that was just like an independently owned Dark Horse thing. I know it was made by the guy from My Chemical Romance, so that gives it a bit of sway. But even like all these top things, like The Boys and all these things that are like huge things online, the Invincible comic, like The Walking Dead, like all things that started as these little indie books that just became these like multimedia powerhouses. And it's like you're not shoehorned by needing to work for a big company anymore. If you can get enough eyes on your product in the smaller arena, there's no reason you can't get to this stuff.
Well, now it's more affordable too, right? Like back in the days, we wanted to make a book $5. We had to print 25,000. To be able to sell it for $5.
Yeah, that's true.
It was just that way. And it's like, this is what you get. There's no print on demand. There's no you have to buy 25,000 to make it $5. So it was, the outlets, the access is now to do things like you could never have to print a book if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Say, I just want to keep it completely digital. And then your hustle is about bringing people to that platform to come read your book. You know what I'm saying? So there's just so many more options of people being able to do different things. Right. So that's why the industry, like for that, is just so, it's just the black, like it just blew up, I could just, so, everybody with an idea now is trying to find an artist. Hey, can you
Yeah. Well, it's funny because
he pay you, but when it takes off, I can give you, what I'm saying, a percent.
You'll get those exposure dollars, those ones. Every artist has heard that one. I once saw a comic strip where it was like the guy's like, I want you to draw my comic book. I can't afford to pay you, but I give you exposure. And the guy goes, oh, you like exposure? And he just bends over and shows him his ass and then just walks away. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right.
This industry, like
well, everybody, it's funny because art, it's one of, like I said, art is something that's deeply appreciated and everywhere, but also like deeply, like it's deeply appreciated by those that are paying attention, but it's also so disposable by the average people. Like the average person's like, can you just design a logo for me? I'm a graphic designer by trade, but I draw and I do art and stuff. And it's like, can you just do this? Can you just do that? And people think it's like it is my job, like to be like, it's not disposable to me. It's something I should be paid for. I worked hard at. I spent 20 years or 18 years working on. It's like, it's one of those things.
That's the thing that they don't equate. Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that they don't equate. They just go, well, what's the problem? You just dropped something.
Yeah.
but don't understand that you trained how long to be able to visualize and take those elements you're asking for and do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like I was in an interview with the questionnaire, and that same kind of thing came up, and I said, like, this is like one of the most pimped out industries because your status is nothing until you're on something recognizable or people recognize you. If you're not on something people recognize, you're fighting for every
and you could be the most talented artist in the world, and it doesn't matter unless it doesn't matter.
Look, I've been doing this for how long? I've been to so many shows. There's so many guys that I see at some of these conventions. They don't work for the big companies, Marvel, these independent guys, but they can drop there. And I'm like, oh God, that guy's a monster. That guy's a beast. That girl's crazy. Like I've seen so much crazy talent that makes me just say, hey man, you phenomenal. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And they're not working for the big guys and stuff like that. But I see them at the show and people them paying them no mind and just walk by their booth and paying them no mind. Beautiful artwork, paying them no mind. Because they're not tied to anything. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's just it's a shame that that's the way it is, but that is exactly the way it is. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be a great artist to be a popular artist.
No.
Right? If you do something and you get yourself on something that's recognizable, you get the break and you get yourself on recognizable. All of a sudden, you're the best thing since cooked food.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? You're the best thing since, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh my God, he's so amazing. I'm like, okay. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's funny because I think it's based around, like, you got to find your niche, I suppose. Like, if you look at something to me like Scott Pilgrim, like his art style is not, crazy detailed or crazy elaborate. It's fun and it's great. But like he found the medium that it worked in so well and then created this sort of phenomena. Or like Bone. Like I think Jeff Smith's like an amazing illustrator. But that comic is, it's incredibly simple in like the Bone designs, but incredibly complex and detailed in like, the world around them, essentially in the valley and stuff. And like you look at all this stuff and you just find your thing. It's like you gotta like Mike Allred is such a strange artist compared to like whatever else in the industry. Or Humberto Ramos. Like you look at his art, it's very different compared to like other things you often see, but it works in the context of like a Spider-Man comic or something cool that he's doing. Or X-Men or whatever. So like you can find your voice or your style. I always tell them when I talk to kids for anything I'm like, don't be ashamed if your style isn't conventional. Just make, work within it. And often that's what makes you unique, is that you look different than everybody else. And sometimes that's a benefit, like it's
sometimes guys think busy means better. And busy doesn't mean better.
No.
All I tell guys is like, if you understand the fundamentals of what you're doing and you can do it strong, right? Now, understanding the fundamentals doesn't mean, fundamentals that I have to hatch and render everything to the nth degree. And no, it doesn't mean that. It's just, I understand anatomy well. I understand perspective. I understand these fundamental, I understand storytelling. I understand things. If you understand these elements and understand them well, you design a nickel and dime head characters, but you can tell a good story with those nickel and dime head characters, you're going to still rock it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like any of the other big superhero ones that, you know what I'm saying? Like, if what you can do is really done well, and those elements are strong, you're, like you said, your environment, everything just looks good and it comes together well, right? So, I don't get caught up with that too much of that, like, well, this guy is better than that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, because he just detailed more. Like, no, there's a lot of guys who have a lot of detail hiding flaws that you can see in their work, but they can render well, so they hide a lot of stuff. It's just it is what it is, right? But art, like you said, is just so subjective, when people, with what people decide to gravitate to. But I will say, though, when it comes to this industry, especially comic books and stuff like that, I'll say, and I can only speak for that, like I can see there's a lot of that, what you're on dictates. You know what I'm saying? how amazing you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, amazingness can change on the drop of a dime if you're on something like recognizable. And all of a sudden you're the best thing since you know what I'm saying? Like you know.
Yeah, that's true. And it's funny how, like, you know, you're right though. It's just it's the second you knock that door down. Like, I've had a friend of mine, he was actually an old roommate of mine years ago, Dave Cutler, works for Marvel now. He's been drawing a lot of stuff for, and like, you know, I watched him his style back in the day and then watched him go on, and now that he's, you know, in Toronto, like, you know, drawing stuff for Marvel, it's like you know, he was an amazing illustrator back then. And now that, you know, he's got a few X-Men things under his belt, like, people are finally starting to pay attention to him. And it's like, he was out there doing a lot of stuff at cons and stuff before he got that far. And it's, but
and he was always good.
Oh, fantastic.
But people weren't giving him that look.
But now he's on, but then once you hit a Marvel book, that's when it changes, which is funny.
Now all of a sudden it's like, that dude, right? So it's just the way things, people perceive that stuff, right? You know?
So what brought you to Alberta from Toronto?
Just a change.
Yeah,
just a change. Yeah,
were you drawn to the roving hills and the,
you know what,
farmland?
I would drive out here every time to do the Calgary Expo. I've driven all over Canada.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen it. I remember we were talking one time and you were telling me about, hey, to stop and pick up some artwork somewhere else, to go to some other con. I was like, man, I don't think I know anybody in the art game that hustles like you do. I was like, Hugh hustles the hardest. I think I was talking to Troy Little about it. I'm like he's like, I got like 6 conventions in the next like 5 days. Like, I got to stop somewhere and pick up some art from a box somewhere and then go on this and go sell there. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's living the dream, just hustling.
You know what? Right. It was like that.
What you got to do?
Death of a salesman type.
You're the Willie Lomas of
Willie Lomas, man. I just had to go. You know, my thing was like, I've like, as a freelance independent, right? My work when I was in Toronto, most of my work was never even coming from Toronto. It was always coming from other places. And then as technology got up and stuff like that, it was like, wow, I don't need to be in Toronto to do work. You know what I'm saying? And but what happened was, I just got to a place. I would drive out here, drive here, drive to Vancouver, drive to Winnipeg, but I was just loving it. And as I got closer to the mountains, and I was just like, man, I'm really loving it here. There's a certain power and energy that comes from the mountains. You know, I'm literally like 45 minutes away from the mountains from where I'm at, right? Like, I could be in Canmore and spend a day in the mountains. It's beautiful. That's awesome. But it was just that. And it was just a point in my life where I was just like, man, I need a change. And I had 2 young boys, 2 babies at the time, you know what I'm saying? And 2 young boys. And I was just like, you know what, man, if I'm going to do this change, I should do it now while they're young, you know? Yeah. As opposed to when they're older and really attached and stuff like that. And then me and my partner Brenda there, we discussed it, and then we just said, hey, let's go. And I came out, and I was always coming out to Calgary, and I was always loving it, just being here. And then I just said, you know what, man, this is where I need to be. Awesome. You know, sometimes it's just an energy. You just get pulled. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you start at one place, but that might not be the place you need to be. And then you take a trip and you're like, holy flip, I really love it here in Honolulu. It just feels right. Everything feels right. So you decide to move to Hawaii for a while, and you go live in Hawaii. You know what I'm saying? You just, sometimes you have to that's what you have to do. You know, and
travel will give that to you. When you move around,
your best self. To get at your best self.
Experience other climates and locales and find something that feels like your place.
It's one of the best things. It's opened up my eyes to just the world, to cultures, to everything. And driving it, you know, I have a real appreciation for this country, man. I really do. Like, Canada is a beautiful country, man. Like, it really is a spectacular country. I understand why other countries trying to get our resources. I really Canada is mad beautiful.
Well, and especially for the size of it comparative to how many people actually live here. You know, like, it's pretty crazy.
Well, when you think about it, most of like the country is at the border.
Oh yeah, 100%.
The country, the hardcore, the country's at the border. Yeah. But man, when you start getting up there and you see these towns and you know, it's just like, it's just amazing, man. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I had a wrestling tour in Winnipeg one time, and we went up pretty far north, up to like some little native communities and stuff. And It was cool. Like, you know, when you're getting up closer to that up north, and I think there's something I think you're right about finding your space. Like, I love Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And one place that resonated with me when I visited was Scotland, which is very much like Nova Scotia. And that's probably why I liked it so much.
Yeah.
You know, it's very coastal and, you know, like rocky and beautiful little vistas and lakes and all that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, I know what you mean. It seems like a very, it felt like home. And, it's funny because I did one of those DNA tests and it said that I was super Irish. When I was in Ireland, I felt the same way. And it's like, I wonder if it's something in your DNA or it's just, I guess most white Canadians are probably either Irish or English. It's kind of, you know, where your DNA is from. But have you gone back to Jamaica very often, or have you got
No,
back?
actually, I haven't been to Jamaica. Like, I was there quite a few years ago, just before my grandmother died. I was down there and got to go see her, and then was down there with my mom and dad. And no, I haven't really been to Jamaica that much, but like in the last while. But you know, another place that I used to feel very, very at home with it was Korea. I've been to Korea
really?
multiple times.
I'd love to go.
I don't know what it was. I just felt right there. Like, I had another buddy who actually picked up and moved there because he just was like, Hugh, I don't know what it is. I just feel right here. And so he picked up and moved. Right. I had stuff going on with, you know, my dad was sick and certain things. And I was like, nah, I can't be that far away. Right. At the time. But I'm telling you, man, if it was, I probably would have moved there. Like, it was really that intense, the draw, you know. So, you know,
yeah, I have friends that have spent time there mostly as teachers, but I've heard there's a real, like, from what they've described, it sounds like a really cool, you know, like I love the idea you can go to like a bar and play board games while you're drinking, and then like go to some karaoke place, and it just seems like there's always something going on, which is like a fun.
Soul is big, man. Like soul, like, you know, like,
I feel like I've
soul
like
is big.
I feel like going to like an Asian country where you're in one of these big cities where it's just like a sea of humanity around you all the time. It must be kind of overwhelming. Like, that movie was a Lost in Translation. I watched that on a plane when I was going to Europe, to Scotland, Ireland. And I remember like that movie does a really good job of like making you feel, like, reminding you about how lonely you could be in a crowd of people. And you know, I'm like looking at this and like, oh, I feel like Asia must feel like that sometimes, if you're just like, I guess if you're ingrained in the culture and you know people and you built a life for yourself, it's different. But
well, it's funny. Like, when I was in Korea, and I went to Korea, you know, I didn't really know a lick of Korean. I could say maybe a few little things. That was it. But people were just like so welcoming and so trying to, oh, hello, like, they were so happy. You know what I'm saying? And it was crazy because there was a couple times we went into like a restaurant or something, like some maybe mom and pop shop or something, and then they didn't want me to pay. They were like, no, they were happy that a foreigner came into their shop. They wanted to take pictures more so than, you know, what I'm saying, me paying them for the meal. It was just amazing. Like, it was amazing. You're talking like years and years and years and years and years and years and years back, but it was just an amazing experience. Like, I never once felt out of place, and I barely knew any Korean.
No, that's awesome.
I could go, like, their transit system is phenomenal.
Yeah,
that stuff takes you all over the place. Like, I mean, all the inner streets, everything. Like, you step out, you catching a bus. Like, it's actually better to take the transit than drive.
Yeah, I know a lot of people don't have vehicles there for that reason.
Yeah, it's
I feel like that when I go to it. Like, I live in Truro, Nova Scotia, which is about an hour from Halifax. Yeah. And you know, I wonder that whenever I go to like Quebec or something, and you have these like subway systems, bus systems, it's just so much simpler. And it's like living out in the sticks, kind of. You know, it taints you to how easy it could be to live in a big city. And I'm also kind of spoiled because where I live is like right on the water in the Bay of Fundy. We bought a house here a while ago, and it's really beautiful to see the, you know,
it is
that
beautiful.
every day.
It's like, I've driven out there so many times. Like, yeah, where you're living is just like, I love it out there. I really do. Like, I love it out there. It's beautiful. It was either west or east.
Yeah,
it really was. It was either west or east.
It seems like comic folks have picked that. Like, I've talked to that a little bit with some other creators. Like, I've had Ed Brisson on the show, and you know, like, he moved out here, and it's just sort of like, you know, now that the days of needing to be in a major city to do your job for comics or writing or whatever, it's like, you can do it anywhere. You don't need to be anywhere. You know, so why live in a city that costs like a ridiculous amount of money to live, like Toronto, where you can
you know, it's so funny.
come out here.
like all my buddies,
Yeah.
they're upset now. It's so expensive. So I was like, why are you staying
Yeah,
there? Why are you
exactly.
still there? That don't make
Leave.
any sense. Go.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? But you just have to have that, like,
Some
you just
people don't
have
want to
have that
leave.
courage. Some people like just the unknown scares them. But for me, it's like, man, like I'm gonna go do it, and what's gonna happen is gonna happen. I just, I don't let that be a factor to stop me. I just whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly the unknown becomes known when you just step into it for a second. Like people don't, like I get the change is scary, but you'd be surprised. Often in my life, whenever I've done something that's radically kind of like a big change, usually after you're in it for hardly any time at all, it's something new and unique and fun, and it becomes a positive experience. You just need to
most definitely
take I'm not telling you to sell all your belongings, live on a mountain somewhere, but just like,
oh, trust me, the way the world's going, I could do that, man.
Yeah, maybe I'll join you. Yeah,
the way the world's going, I go, man, like that show Mountain Men. Go, these people are crazy. Now I watch that show and I go, let me maybe learn a few things from these guys. I'm getting tired, buddy.
Yeah, I know the grind. I think that too. You're like, I romanticize stuff like that. Like my wife always makes fun of me, but it's like, you're like, man, if I just had like a cabin on a hill, by a brook with a wood stove, and I could just live there, it wouldn't be that, but in reality, if you did that, you'd probably lose your mind after living out there alone for, a month. I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't either. I think I'd be, if I could bring my books and my movies with me, I'd be happy. Watch movies, read books, chop wood.
Because I've always traveled.
Yeah.
I've always picked up, got in the car, and just went. I never think about how long the journey is going to be. I never go, oh man, that's going to be 32 hours of drive. I don't. Just, once I get into drive mode, it's my way of just making my mind relax.
Yeah. I find it meditative.
Information around me.
I like long drives. I find it meditative. Yeah.
I love it. It's very meditative. It's and when you're driving, like when you're driving through, so heading out west, right? So you're driving and you got to go up to through Thunder Bay, like you got to go up to Sault Ste. Marie and then go through, like, just that drive going through Sault Ste. Marie, going up to the mountains, going through to Thunder Bay. Beautiful, just stunning stuff you're going to see. Then when you go through Thunder Bay and you're heading down to Manitoba, just beautiful stuff in the mountains. And you're in the mountains, and you're just seeing these little hublets of just lakes, and just like there's some areas that people are living in, and there's a helicopter that flies in and just does a drop, and that's it. That's their thing. They don't have a road that goes in. The helicopter comes and just, you know what I'm saying? And it's pretty wild. Like, just living in some very beautiful places, man, in this country. You would be surprised, really, really surprised.
It sounds like you're a traveler at heart. That's
it is. It's very hard for me to stay one place for too long.
Nomad.
You know what I'm saying?
So I was going to ask you, since it seems like now that you're living in Alberta, you've kind of fallen into the become ingratiated with the natives, especially doing a graphic novel on John Ware. I was interested in that, and the book you did about him, and the other book on
Floris Ledoux.
Yeah, Floris Ledoux, right. So how did that come about? Those are pretty like folky Canadian heroes to be doing kids books about.
Well, okay, so I'll get started. Like, this was a sort of wild set of events, because it was like, my wife, she met, oh my God, what's the name? I'm sorry, I'm tired.
Oh, it's quite all right.
But she met person who put me in touch with Red Barn Books, and they were looking for an illustrator to do John Ware, but she specifically wanted a Black illustrator to do John Ware.
Fair enough, yeah.
I don't really like those kind of titles. I'm just like, look, man, I illustrate. I'm no different from anybody.
Oh, for sure, yeah, no.
But anyways, she was looking for an illustrator. I guess she wanted to just bring that to the book also. You know what I'm saying? And I respect.
It's a deeply African, like
it's a deeply, and I respect that and stuff. Yeah. Like that. So we got together and we met, and then it was like, oh well, like, I have this book John Ware, and he's a hero from out here, and then I never knew anything about John Ware myself, and then when I started to read up on him and learn some more, but I was like, oh my God, this is really cool. You know what I'm saying? This is really cool. And so it was funny because she was like, "Oh, so okay, can I see your website?" Like, yeah, go check out my website. So like, I'm laughing because she's seen all the carnages. She's seen all the stuff. She's like, "This guy's going to draw a children's book, right?"
Can we put a symbiote in the John Ware book?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Oh, anti-venom. What's that? Like, you know what I'm saying? So, she's like, I don't know if this guy can draw this book, but like again, it's just drawn.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
It all flows from the same thing. And then everything else from that becomes cosmetic. Like I don't, you know what I'm saying? It's just styles after that. You know what I'm saying? And so I had to show her, like, yeah, well, what do you want? So she just goes, oh, I'm looking for this kind of look. I said, okay. And I did like 20 concepts of the main character. She's like, holy, she was flipping out, right? Oh, I like this one and this one and this one, but I think I'm going to go with this. Okay. So then I started drawing the rest of the characters around that look and that feel. And then, I put it out. I was just happy to do it. I feel like it's one of the high marks of my career.
He won you an award, right? Children's Book of the Year.
Yeah. Children's Books of the Year Award and Heritage Book Year Award. But what's great about it too is that I've always just wanted to do something that gives back to the children and gives back to this country in some way. You know what I'm saying? And now the book is like an Indigo, and teachers are picking it up and using it in their
that's awesome. That's fantastic.
Curriculums and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool, like, to just know that you've done something that, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's gonna far precede you in that way. But I'm giving back to like kids, you know what I'm saying? Which is always something for me that's just like, and just enlightening them to a character that he was like, I mean, this guy helped develop the West. He really did. He helped bring cattle ranching. Like, he was one of those dudes, but he, just put him in the back when he was really one of the main guys who really, you know what I'm saying, got that whole ranching, you know what I'm saying?
Canada folk heroes are like few and far between. There's the ones that we all know, the Lou Reals and that sort of thing, but it's like there are quite a few of the voices that like he was an interesting character just because, like the having like a black cowboy in of any notoriety at that time period wasn't super common. So like you had he was sort of our Canadian version of like Bass Rutten in the States, who was like the lawman, who was kind of like a really interesting character as well. But it was, you're right, like those voices aren't ones that are taught as often, and it's great to have an easy way to give this to children and have them learn in a fun manner instead of just like,
well, that's it. Like,
give them a history lesson.
I'm not trying to be like, and it's tough, because you try not to. I don't use like the things like my race or things to my culture as something to stop me, or use it as something to hinder me. Like, I'm like, whatever, you telling me I can't go through the front door, well, I'm coming through the window, you're not going to stop me.
Exactly.
That's just how I feel, right? But I'll never forget, like, growing up, it was like, hey, you were slaves, you were free. You escaped to Canada. Or it was just like, you know what I'm saying? It was just like, well, you're telling me we didn't contribute anything to this country? Like, nothing? Like, you didn't. And people who don't have to experience that or can't understand it. Like, when you don't see yourself in the picture, it's hard to feel a part of it. You understand what I'm saying?
Representation is incredibly important.
Even though I was born here, there's still people who would say, where were you born? I said, I'm born in Canada. I'm Canadian. No, but where are you from? I said, I was born in Canada. I'm Canadian. Oh, but where's your family from? Well, my parents are from Jamaica, but you're asking me where I was born. I'm a Canadian. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so it's always been a little bit of a thing. So for me to get something like this on this and give something like that, to shine a light on something that was not barely, kind of in whispers, and it was really cool for me. Like for me, it's like a big highlight. Like awards or no awards, I don't.
Yeah.
It's not even about the awards. It's just really about doing something like that and giving back. It was really important for me. I felt really, a Canadian, hero. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, those was born in that you still a Canadian, came to Canada,
giving him a platform. Like people can learn about his story. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had a big, started in slavery and came up here, and and I mean, you look at the things that he went through and what he had to endure, and still know that he had to get up another day and still support his family and do what he had to do.
And go on to be like one of the most talented ranchers. The best, pretty much. Yeah,
it's that same thing when you ask, when I came to Alberta, it's that same kind of pick up and go. And it's like, no, our families, it doesn't matter, black, white, Chinese, our families have been doing that for generations.
Yeah.
Picking up and going somewhere and starting somewhere else. So that's why it always kills me when these guys I talk to, they're so afraid to. I'm like, why are you so afraid? That's what we do. That's what culture does. That's how you expand. That's how you know what I'm saying? Bring, like, don't be so afraid to, pick up and go. Like, by all means, go and spread. This is best. My kids love it out here.
Yeah.
I love it out here. It's just the best, man.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the Flores Ledoux one came out of that as well.
Yeah, and the Flores Ledoux came out, and again, she was a famous trick writer. She was the wife of Guy Whittick, who was the guy who with the other gentleman founded the Calgary Stampede. Created the Calgary Stampede. But she was such an amazing trick writer. Like, she was beating men.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And there was a lot of women that were beating men, but they were women, so they didn't get no props. They didn't get no, you know what I'm saying? And these are the histories that we have to acknowledge and face. I'm not saying that we have to swim in that and say, oh well, because of that, now don't progress. No, we have to look back and say, well, this was bullshit, but look at how far we've come from that. Like,
I think it's important to show the shit that we've overcome, or so that we can understand and not go back. Like, not that I think we're going to backslide into,
but don't swim in it to the point that you're like, you know what I'm saying? Oh, look what happened to me. Look what happened here. Look what happened here. So it's so you're not doing what you need to do here. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, 100%. You don't want to get
that's gone. That happened. That's things. So let's try to work towards the positive things that we can do now. And anyone trying to bring bullshit from back there, we chop, chop on it one time. You know what I'm saying? No, it ain't even that type of party. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we could do a little bit more of the chopping, that's for sure.
Like, I've been blessed in life. I have a very diverse friends base from every kind of culture group that are like friend, like family. Like deeper than like just, hey, you're a friend. No, they're family, and every one of them has done for me, and I've done for them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sit here and go, well, that group, this group, that group, and I have such a multiverse of friends who have we've all been great for each other. Go to each other's houses, eat food, break bread, play with their kids. Each other, man. Like, that's I've seen the world through them, so I don't take nothing away from that, man. And I wish everybody could. I wish everybody could do that.
That's the I can't remember who said it, but I've quoted it a few times where somebody said that, like, the cure for racism is travel. Like, once you see that the world is the world, we're all the same. It's just, people looking different in whatever country they're in. It doesn't matter. We're all people that are just worried.
Before I started hitting the road, when I first time would come and they were like, I remember the first time I came out west, the very first time I came out west was Winnipeg. Winnipeg. And when I told these guys I was going out to Winnipeg, if you ever heard them, you want to go out to what? Like, I'm telling you, man, I was going to get off the plane. There was going to be turning passes,
pitchforks, my angry mom waiting for you. Yeah,
like, that's the way they talk.
Yeah,
that's the way they talk.
Yeah.
So I landed that plane, and I'm already, hairs are up. I'm like, okay, do I got to watch for people, man? some of the best people I've met is from Winnipeg.
Yeah.
To this day, we're still great. Like Hugh, you're in town, need a place to stay, you come stay by us. Like that kind of love. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what I'm talking about. And the more I travel, the more like Yellowknife. Yellowknife is amazing. If
I've always wanted to go. I want to go someday.
You can drive the entire city nowhere in like 10 minutes.
Well, I've been like wrestled all across Labrador, so I've been pretty far north. And I've been to Lab City, which is like the northern part of Quebec and up that way. And it's some cool little communities up there. It's neat.
Yeah, man, just amazing people. But Yellowknife, I'm thinking, okay, here we are north of 60, right? I mean, Yellowknife. I'm probably going to be the only Negro in Yellowknife. That's all that I'm thinking in my bully. The town is more multicultural than some areas down here.
Really?
I mean, Africans, Filipinos, East Indians. Like I was like, when I was down there, people didn't even think I wasn't from down there.
Yeah, that's awesome,
man. Yellowknife, amazing, and the people were just amazing. But of course, it doesn't matter where you're going to go. You're going to have your asses.
Oh yeah,
anywhere you go, it's just the way.
But you can't let that stop you from experiencing the world.
You can't brush a whole peoples on that. You know what I'm saying? And I just refuse to do that. You know.
Awesome. So are your kids into art? Are they heading?
Yeah, man. Like you know, it's interesting. You know, because I'm very happy that they're smarter than me. They were smarter than me.
Well, they got their mom in there too.
And right? what I respect about them is that they're still very analytical. Like they're still good at math and sciences and stuff like that. But they're also creative, and they can draw. And then stuff that you see them build with Lego. I'm sitting there going, man, you know what I'm saying? Like they don't even follow the box. They'll follow the box initially, and then once they build that, now they're making their own things. Like they're very creative.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know? So I've been blessed that way. Like they're better than me, I'll tell you.
Wow, that's amazing. So what's next for you? Like what's on the is it just cons, or do you have any other books or anything coming out? Or
yeah, I'm working on some stuff right now. A couple things. I got things that I'm working on. Like I'm finishing up. I did a series with Zelfa Comics with Lou Nuami. It's called Rock, Paper, Scissors, Wars and Stuff. Paper, Rock, Scissors, Wars and Stuff. Sorry. And initially the book was in black and white, so now I'm actually coloring it and finishing out that. So that's 102 pages, and I'm getting that done up. And there's a couple other things going on I can't mention right now, regretfully, just because we have to wait until it's announced officially.
Of course,
talked about it. But yeah, I got quite a few things that is coming down the pipe, so it's pretty exciting. Plus doing conventions, so. It's March, April. Now we're getting into March, moving into April, May, June. It's just going to pick up, and it's just going to get wild from there. So,
well, I'm excited to see you at a con again down here, and and if any of the people listening see Hugh's name on the docket for artists, check out his stuff. You won't miss. You can't miss his display. It's one of the most vibrant, beautiful displays I've ever seen. It's so bright and colorful. Like all your art is so bright, and like I love it so much. You cannot miss it. It's gorgeous.
For me, it's about energy.
Yeah.
I like energy. Like I'm not trying to do this really hard reproduction of something and getting it exact. And I just like energy. I like movement. I like those things that we talked about earlier. I like when you look at a picture, you feel like you're in it. Like I tell people that I don't illustrate. I try to capture moments. You know what I'm saying? And that's how
what your anatomy teacher taught you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Try to capture a moment. Like, what's the story? Every time you draw, like, what's the story? Why did you do that? Or why is that there? Like, what's the story? You only have the one shot. What's the story? That's how the old school was doing it. That's why when you look at their covers, it's just so like, there's that one moment, and the covers would just tell these amazing stories, make you want to pick up the book, and that's always been my train of thought, and I don't ever want to lose that, because I think that is some of the highest level of what you do. I'm saying I don't want to lose that. Like, I mean, we could just TNA shots for the rest of the, you know what I'm saying, and but Nah, man, it ain't that type of party with me. Like,
Yeah, no, I remember reading many years ago that my local comic shop, the guy that ran it was away on vacation. He asked me to run it for him for a week. So just I remember putting away people's comics, and one guy got this, was it Tarot, the Black Rose, I think it was called, and it was like one of these comics where like the woman's, it's just all, every time she gets in a fight with someone, her shirt gets ripped off, and then the bad guy spanks her for some reason. It's just all like, it's all like, it is like everything's really tight. It's always breasts and like super tight shots of her butt and other stuff while like someone's spanking her. And I'm like, how can the guy, like, I guess the paycheck's a paycheck, but the guy who's drawing this must be the most boringest thing, because it's just the same thing all the time. And literally, I remember reading this thing, and even to read it, like, I guess I don't want to judge other people for whatever they're into, but I was like, man, how can you because like issue 20 of this is the exact same as 19, which is the exact same as, like, just flipping through it, you're like, these are all the exact same story. It's yeah. So, but I'm really happy that you managed to find an outlet and that you get to keep reinventing yourself creatively, because
well, that's it, right? Like, I like working with independents. I do. I like working with people who are serious. And, coming to the table with some seriousness. Like, you know what I'm saying? Not the, this will give you exposure. None of that crap. Like, you know what I'm saying? Hey, look, I got a budget. This is what I'm looking at doing. Can you help me? And I'm more than happy. Yeah, for sure. I'm not trying to wild out on people. Like, I like to work with guys, and because I like putting new energy out there. I like to put out things that aren't already out there. Like, I'm not really, it doesn't excite me to just reconstitute.
No. Yeah.
Stuff that's already done.
Yeah.
And, I got the privilege to meet Stan Lee, and we were, just last before you go, we got to meet Stan Lee in San Diego. And he, we were talking to him, and, the typical fanboy stuff. Oh, Stan Lee, oh, you're the reason why we started drawing comics. I really love your stuff, and so we're going off. And he's talking to us for like a good 20 minutes. He's an awesome guy. Stan was just the man. Like, he really was.
I met him very briefly in Montreal
just amazing
10 years ago.
He was amazing, dude. But, and he goes, and he just looked at us, and he just said, guys, I'm excited that you love my stuff. But he goes, I'm really excited to look at what you do and what you produce and what you put out there. And that just changed the whole way of thinking and just reinforced the things that I wanted to do, and said, yeah, you know what, Hugh, man, like, go put that in it. It might not be as big as the Spider-Mans or whatever, but it's still original, me, with whoever, and then me and my stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that's it. And I'm good. I got my kids, I got my family. We're doing all right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
awesome.
No, I don't have a private jet or nothing like that. But
not yet. You wait till that
good, man.
The Netflix show comes out.
All I wanted to be was able to do what I love to do, and that was draw and be able to make a living just doing what I love to do, and I'm doing that, so I can't complain. I'm
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Hugh. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Dude, thank you. And I hope to see you put your application for East Coast. I want to see you out there this
year. I'm gonna look into that actually now, right after I finish.
All right, perfect. Well, I hope to see you there. We'll catch up and have a beer or something.
Yeah, for sure. Most definitely.
Awesome.
Be awesome.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks again. Take care.
Anytime. Bye-bye. You too.
All right. Bye.
There you have it, my talk with Hugh Rookwood. Really fun conversation. Like I said, super positive guy, great energy, and amazing talent when it comes to art, and a real chameleon when you look at the different things he's done and how unique his style can be and how it can be molded into different ways. So check out his work. The new book, which we talk about, the other new book, everything he has coming down the horizon, a few things he said he couldn't talk about. I'll try to share those when I find out what they are here on social media to let you get in on that as well. In a couple weeks' time, we'll be back with another episode. I believe my guest will be Robert Maillet, who a former professional wrestler named Kurgan, went on to star in the movie 300, Mortals, Becky, Sherlock Holmes, The Strain. He's been in a lot of stuff. He's a big, imposing dude. I've run into him in the wrestling circle a couple times. And yeah, great guy, a real sweetheart, and very excited to talk to him. I'm hoping that all filters out in time for the next episode. It seems as though we're just coordinating right now, but I think we'll be able to make it happen. So looking very forward to bringing you that conversation as well. And I know I've mentioned a few times in the show, but we are a part of the United Federation of Podcasts, which is something that I've kind of joined with my partner from the X-Rated podcast, Davin Skelhorn. That podcast, if you're unfamiliar, is a show in which Davin and I watch all the episodes of the original 1990s Fox cartoon and, rate them, talk about them, discuss them, have a little laugh along the way. And it's a really fun little show, but Davin has many podcasts. He's very prolific on the podcast circuit, and another one that he just started that I recently started listening to was the Hold Up, a movie podcast, in which he and Chris Murphy, another member of the Federation here, watch 3 old movies. Some are old, some are more contemporary, and discuss if they hold up or not. And, I'm a fan of movie podcasts, listen to quite a few of them because I like movies and it's fun listening to people talk about them. And it's a good little show. If you haven't checked it out, I suggest you do so. They're long episodes, but honestly, they kind of fly by. And honestly, I don't know why people get so hung up on the lengths of podcasts, because generally most people listen to them when they can, mowing the lawn, cleaning the house, long drives. That's when I listen to them. And, if they're long, well, then I just pause it and pick it up when I can next time. But they're great episodes and really fun. I've listened to the first 3 episodes, I think, now, and I've thoroughly enjoyed them. Davin's been trying to get me on the show and make me one of the hosts, and maybe someday that'll make sense. Right now, I'm just too busy. But I am listening and tuning in and enjoying it, so you should as well. And also, if you don't already, I'm assuming if you're listening to me, you've already subscribed to us on your feed. But if you have, thank you, and also please rate. That's a rate and share. That's the best way to get the algorithm up so we can get out there and get more attention. It's been a couple years, I guess almost 3 years of this experiment now. Actually, has it been over 3 years? It was in 2020. But yeah, when the show started, it was kind of in a different format where we would do bios of comic characters and then sort of meld it into this interview segment, which I thoroughly enjoy more, and then change to a bi-weekly basis. But we are zeroing in on episode 100, which is pretty exciting, and I'm pretty pumped to figure out something exciting to do for that. Only 4 weeks away, or 4 bi-weeks away, so a few months away. But in the meantime, thanks again for listening. I know I'm pretty grateful to you guys, and I know I let you know that a lot, but it really is a fun little side project I started during COVID that sort of ballooned into something that means a lot more to me, and I honestly really, really love talking to some of these people, but their processes, where they come from, and just rapping, creativity, and comics in general makes me a happy guy. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Stay frosty. The Graphic Histories Podcast is a proud partner of the United Federation of Podcasts.